Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have Trump's World Liberty Fire announcing macro strategy, a new way to diversify its holdings across tokenized assets and invest in innovative projects, aka hopefully pump your bags. We'll dive into that a little bit later. We've got the A16Z head of policy set to become permanent chair of the CFTC. That sounds pretty good. And also famous investor and All-In podcast host Jason Calacanis saying just ban these stupid meme coins, tweeting at the SEC. We'll have a discussion. There's been hyper activity on the meme coin side of things in the last few days, so we'll dive into a discussion there too. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a little AI segment today brought to you by our partner at Mode. Looking forward to that. Today I've got Legendary and Dith in the co-host seats. We're ready to get into it, but just before we do, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very, very risky, so please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Wednesday, it's the 12th of February. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM doing pretty well. I like the hoarse voice, makes it sound more intense just from the intro. You know, we were just chatting before the show that we feel a bit more optimistic about the market, but that voice is a bit of a contrast to that sentiment.
Yeah, I'm very sick. I'm like aggressively sick at the moment, so that gives the whole show like this somber tone that maybe is unwarranted. We were just talking before Dith that maybe there's a little bit more optimism at the moment. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Feeling optimistic? Am I getting you down with the hoarse voice?
No, man, I appreciate the raspiness. I agree with Legendary. It suits you. Shame that you're actually sick. It'd be nice if you were just it'd be nice if you were just putting that on to sound cool. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I'm kind of a permeable, but I look at the facts kind of objectively, and okay, the last few weeks have been bumpy, but there's just so many good things lining up, right? Like stars are aligning, and barring anything really unexpected and some sort of black swan curveball, I think we're going to be okay. And on a micro / personal level, like everything I'm working on is giving me a lot of cause for optimism as well. This is going to be a fun week. Really, the next few weeks are all going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, the glass is half full over here.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I know you've been doing, you're obviously, CMO at Proof of Play at Pirate Nation, but you also minted out Gigaverse recently as well, right? That's building that out on Abstract, trying to kind of showcase the Proof of Play technology. How's that been? Like, that's pretty, I've seen like the engagement you've been getting must be pretty adrenaline fueled, like minting out the project, seeing the excitement about that. How's that been going through that as the kind of founder on that side?
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I with some friends, I put together kind of this, somewhat of like a decentralized game studio called Good Luck Have Fun about a year ago. And, initially the idea was like, honestly, let's just kind of fuck around and have fun and launch cool things that people aren't really expecting. And like all of that leads to kind of this like surprise and delight, or like ship cool things unexpectedly, operating style. And so we started building this game a while ago and no one knew about it. We'd wanted to use Proof of Play's infrastructure platform all along, because obviously that's where I work. I'm obviously going to be bullish on our own technology. So yeah, Gigaverse runs on Abstract as a chain, but we're using Proof of Play's infrastructure stack to power parts of the game. So for example, we use like a logic library, which Proof of Play initially built for Pirate Nation, which is like the largest fully on-chain game. We're using Proof of Play's VRF, which is super fast and super cheap, and TLDR that just gives us random numbers. There's a lot of on-chain apps that need random numbers, games, Gamblify, there's other use cases as well. And then, yeah, we had a mint last week. We actually minted on Monday, which was the day everything went to hell. And
it's always funny when you mint something on a day when things are incredibly down there.
I know. It was definitely one of those where, honestly, so many smart people whose opinions I respect and whose advice is on a net basis incredibly useful were telling me in the 24 hours preceding the mint, like, don't do it. Like, the market's just gone to hell. Sentiment's in the gutter. No one wants to mint anything. Like, don't do it, man. And I was like, well, look, I was kind of seeing a bunch of signals that no one else was. And I've done a few mints, right, over the last sort of 3-4 years. So I kind of get this very fucking cheesy analogy, but you know, in Top Gun, like, Maverick can kind of just, like, you can just kind of feel it. He's not actually looking at like any instrumentation. He just he knows where the line is. And so I just kind of felt it in the moment. I was like, I think we're more than fine. I think, like, I'm getting a lot of advice to the contrary, but you know, and then I just realized, like, look, if you're gonna do it, you gotta be all in. You gotta put your balls in. Actually, like, nothing really works in this space if you kind of go in with a a half level of conviction there. So yeah, we just went all in and we minted out super fast. And it's been a lot of fun since then, right? Like, the mint is obviously, like, just the beginning. Yeah. We launched the game today. I think people are going to find it fun. Awesome. And yeah, we'll get better and better as time goes on.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I definitely agree with just, like, you have to, if you're going to go for something, you have to go for it in this space. That completely makes sense. And it's cool that you explained the proof of play tech a little bit. That was one of the things when we were discussing our partnership. It was just important to get that explanation clear, because I think a lot of people may be unclear about that at the moment. It's like, it's not a chain in itself. The point is, you can integrate it into all the other chains. So you're happy to work with all the other chains and the people who are building out on there via your tech. So
100%. I mean, honestly, I don't blame anyone who's kind of like, what is this? How does it work? Is it a chain or not? Because, you know, to date, we really haven't even started ramping up our marketing. That kind of is all kicking off just about now. So I think over the next month and the month beyond that and so on, a lot more people will know about proof of play, and then, you know, be just as important, like, actually understand who we are, what we're doing, and how this thing works. And yes, I mean, in a nutshell, it's an infrastructure platform where you can build any application or game on any EVM chain. And, you know, we're powering a bunch of the top games on Abstract. We've announced 2. There's more for us to announce as well. And actually today we're going to announce probably one of the best and most significant chain partnerships as well. So in a couple of hours, like, yeah, I'm very excited for that.
Very exciting. Well, we're
cooking this one for a while.
Nice one. We're delighted to be partnering with you anyway, and we'll be, you know, over the next few months, kind of bringing the latest on proof of play.
Same here. We've been trying to look for the best applications and games to work with. We've historically tried to hire the best talent that we can. And honestly, that's why we're working with you guys. Like, we think Modern Market is the best. You guys are the best at what you do. So for us, this was like the no-brainer partnership we wanted to land, and we're super happy as well.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Great to hear it. Feeling is definitely mutual. Right, let's get into it. We need to get into all of the stuff that has been going on in the last 24 hours, get you up to speed ASAP. We've got the price action. Let's start there as usual with the majors. We have Bitcoin down 1% at 96K. We've got ETH down a couple of percent to 2.6. We've got Solana down a couple of percent at $197. On the meme coin side of things, things are a little bit red again. Doge is down a couple of percent. Pepe's down 5%. Trump's down 3%. SPX, Murad's coin down another 6. Pengu's down another 5, down 24% on the week. WIF is down 9. Fartcoin's down 10. AI16Z down 12. The only thing I'd say, you know, I wish I'd look for trends within these and call out AI if possible. AI16Z is up 30% on the week because it obviously had a bit of a bounce, but, you know, giving up some of those gains today. But across the board here, ARK on the AI side is probably one of the stronger ones, up 30% in the week, up 6% in the last 24 hours as well. But more or less everything else is pretty red. AXBT is down 11% too. So a lot of red across the board on the meme coin side. Getting into the headlines themselves, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Trump's World Liberty Fire announces a macro strategy to diversify holdings across tokenized assets and invest in innovative projects. I'm going to be diving into this a little bit more, explaining what that means, but just at the top line, diversifying our holdings across a spectrum of tokenized assets and fostering growth. So they will also be investing in innovative projects. It's not just some of the top stuff. maybe they're going a bit further down the risk curve to invest in more innovative things too. That is really, really important. I want to tie that into some other like more political crypto news when I dive into that headline in just a bit. Next, A16Z head of policy is set to become permanent chair of the CFTC. Increasingly, a lot of political stuff here, right? We're covering a lot of the politics more. It seems to be becoming increasingly relevant. And then finally, famous investor and all-in podcast host Jason Calacanis says, just ban these stupid meme coins, tweets at the SEC. It's been a very eventful weekend and last few days for meme coins. So just want to have a bit of a discussion there. Like, where are we at with them? Are the trenches completely cooked now? Is it fine? Is it annoying? Are people going to still be participating in that arena? We'll touch on all of that a little bit later. That is the headlines themselves. Legendary, what's going on in the NFT market?
Bit of a mixed day for NFTs, honestly. On the one hand, we have Bored Apes were down yesterday, being up today, up 2.16%, 13.8 ETH floor for them. Pudgies are sharing the same fate as Penguin right now, down 5% over the last 24 hours, 10.2 ETH floor for the Pudgy Penguins. Milady's pretty stable, up 1% from yesterday, 4.1 ETH floor. Doodles down 2%, 3.78 ETH floor for the Doodles, and the Zuki's up 4.5% at a 3.33 ETH floor.
Nice. Good. Quick summary, getting into the Web3 Roundup to get up to with everything else. We had the SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce saying that many of the meme coins that are out there probably do not have a home in the SEC under our current set of regulations. We mentioned that already last week when we actually read the documents. Don't need to wait for her to say it. They said, if people want to take these risks, that's going to be up to them. So maybe that opens the door for more of this type of stuff. In other news, Uniswap's L2 Unichain goes live. Next, A16Z announces $50 million seed round in Legend to help bring the next 100 million users on chain. This is, I think, to do with DeFi, to be honest, trying to simplify DeFi and help bring the next 100 million users on chain. In other interesting news, investor Santiago, very prominent investor, Santiago Santos, announced he's building a chain called Inversion. Said, instead of differentiating on consensus mechanisms or the nth technical improvement, we are inverting and differentiating on solving crypto's biggest problem, go to market. They're on a mission to build the largest and most economically thriving chain. We care about one thing, real GDP on chain. I'm pretty intrigued by that. I want to dive into that more whenever I get the chance. Forgetting all the technicalities, all these chains coming out of nowhere all the time. Like, can we get economic value on chain? That I think is an interesting concept to pursue. In other news, Linkstyle announces its first American golf property ownership. I'm thinking of buying one of those tokens. I don't know how much they are, but I'd love to participate. Anime Coin announces Parrot Analytics partnership to announce the top 40 anime each month. That is pretty interesting to note. I think it got a little bit of criticism from the diehard anime fans. When you create a top 10 list, I think it's always hard to make everyone happy anyway. And then finally, Crypto.com announces it can provide crypto asset services across the European member states as well. That is the Web3 Roundup to get you up to with everything else. Before we get into the main stuff today, I want to go to Legendary and Dith to see what is catching their attention from that. Is there anything I've missed? What's exciting people? Legendary first, then Dith.
There's two things I want to quickly touch on. First being Crypto.com regulatory standpoint. We have the EU with the MiCA being in full force, with a regulatory framework for crypto being in full force. So it's pretty cool to see that they are compliant. And that's going to be a big challenge between companies because some are claiming that they're like basically pre-MiCA compliant or they have a pre-clearance and that is stuff that is basically
it's like the pre-vaults for Berachain. It's like,
yeah, with the difference that the pre-vaults for Berachain were real, but like being pre-compliant isn't real because the legislation is live.
Makes no sense.
You either comply with it or you don't. So that's going to be interesting to see the other crypto credit card providers and crypto-friendly bank account providers adapting to that. But also what I've noticed from the basically more TradFi world is, especially in the German-speaking area, that more and more banks are starting to welcome crypto customers, which they didn't do before. And because of that regulatory framework, they're actually happy to open up and integrate their APIs with crypto asset service providers, which is now the term that we use for them in the EU. So it's actually pretty cool to see that this piece of regulatory framework is helping banks to embrace crypto a bit more, because I've been, someone who's been a bit more critical about MiCA on the show, finding it a bit too extensive and maybe overreaching in some points. But Also have to admit that this is a nice result to see that early on specifically. The second thing I quickly wanted to comment on is the Santiago chain. What was it called again? Inversion.
Santiago chain.
The GDP part, like, is, yeah, I mean, that's basically what Ethereum mainnet is trying to do. The thing that I found really interesting, however, was hidden in the last two lines, saying that inversion chain will be tailored to fuel the world's first crypto native private equity strategy, acquiring traditional businesses and anchoring them on our chain. Like, this would be interesting to see how they think about that. Do I think that it needs a specific chain for that? Probably not. Do I understand why they want to have their own chain for that? Absolutely, yes, because it's just a very good value mechanism to do it on your own chain. But I find it intriguing to see how they will come up with that private equity strategy.
Yes, I've been following this a little bit, and I think, I need to read into it more. I think it's an interesting concept and it's something I want to dive into more. But the idea is that, look, everyone keeps building crypto, keeps building all of this infrastructure for other people to maybe build stuff on, and maybe looking for new use cases all the time. It's like, okay, DeFi is relatively new, right? And we just keep building more DeFi and more crypto stuff. But like the big total addressable market that's available in the universe to bring it is like current businesses, like businesses that already exist. Can you just get them onto crypto rails and figure out how you can make their business better and more efficient and therefore more profitable? Like, as a simple objective, make businesses profitable. Again, it's not again, just doing the MAGA thing. Make businesses profitable. That's like the objective. And if crypto can help with that, which I think a lot of people think it can, let's start doing that. There's loads of profitable businesses already. Let's make them more profitable and bring them on chain, rather than concocting new protocols and farming airdrops and doing all this stuff. Like, is it possible to just bring some of those quality businesses on chain? So I think that's the idea. I like the idea. Dith, curious to hear your thoughts on that. Anything else that's going on in the market from the roundup, or anything otherwise? What's exciting you this week?
Yeah, that stood out to me. That specific point about the Santiago chain, it stood out to me as being particularly interesting as well. I'm curious to see how it will, how it actually shake out in reality. Like, my experience, so prior to working in crypto full time at Proof of Play, I was at Stripe, and I was running our private equity partnerships across Europe. And my experience with the vast majority of private equity funds, maybe barring a couple of funds that are much more, digitally native, internet native, but the vast bulk of action and deals in private equity is with, honestly, what I'd probably call boomer businesses, like funds who don't particularly understand digital native businesses or internet businesses. They definitely don't understand crypto. And the types of companies as well are like, it's just a different world, right? You could have like a 60-year-old F&B business or something, where the main shareholder doesn't know what Bitcoin is. So I think the key to making that work will be in the nuance and having like a very, very specific, tailored strategy. If you go too broad too quickly there, I don't understand how it would work. It could also just be like a great marketing tagline, right? There's so many chains now that you kind of have to lead with some interesting point of differentiation that everyone goes, just like we are, oh, that sounds interesting, hasn't been done before. It will be really cool if it actually works. And I think the devil's in the detail. The more specific he goes, and there's certain private equity funds like the Apexes of the world that are probably much better suited to that kind of thing. And then as for the GDP part, also that line stands out to me as well, because it was it's the Stripe's tagline. We're going to increase the GDP of the internet, and it's a great tagline. And I see a lot of startups and sort of tech businesses kind of use some sort of iteration of that. I think the funny thing is, when you speak to John or Patrick about it, they kind of wave it off as like, what does that even mean? It just sounds cool. So I wouldn't take it too seriously, but it does sound cool, to be fair. And then maybe the last thing to comment on, Andreessen are investors at Stripe, and I worked with them there. So the news about Brian is really, really cool. What I'll comment there is that, like, Andreessen's like a it's an absolutely top tier fund. There's many incredible people who work there, and a lot of their team also are absolute true believers, right? They were backing crypto through previous bears. I think this is like, undoubtedly a really, really good thing, and just going to be keen to see how it all kind of comes together and what we end up see happening over the next couple of years.
I like it. Really interesting insight. I think that's why people play, and this is very maybe a simplistic take from my perspective, but like when I look around as someone who's like relatively new entrant into the crypto ecosystem, only came into 2021, came in purely by trading and collecting and doing things with NFTs, moving into the investing side, it's why I guess people try to follow. You get a lot of investors just tailing other investors, right? And you try to get a sense of, right, who respects who in the market, which you mentioned A16Z as like the top tier fund versus other investing teams that are maybe not top tier, right? And I think that badge as an investment, as a company, when you get invested in by A16Z, definitely makes waves in the market. So that's definitely one to call out. And when people are doing their own research, that's partly what we're sharing on the show, like knowledge and insight into what doing those things. A16Z obviously is one of the ones that stands out along with a few others. So interesting stuff. Look, we're going to get into the main headlines in just a little bit, but before we get there today, we've got an interesting AI segment. DeFi is something that is blowing up, and Legendary's been doing some exploration in that arena. Legendary, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I managed to do the whole segment without having to use the weird word DeFi and formulate it around that. But let's do it. Let's get into today's segment on Mode. And they recently launched AI Terminal. The Mode AI Terminal is an AI-based co-pilot for all things DeFi. And this segment is brought to you by Mode, a layer 2 blockchain that is focused on scaling DeFi to millions of users through AI agents and financial applications. So here's what you need to know. What can you do with the AI Terminal? There is 3 feature sets that you can currently access on the terminal: ask, transact, and deploy. Let's quickly take a look at all 3 of them, starting with ask. Ask is pretty self-explanatory. The terminal functions as an LLM, just like ChatGPT, and you can ask for information about Web3 protocols and chains. The AI is powered by Ask Brian, and it will generate an answer for you, linked to the docs that it used to generate that answer, which is particularly helpful because A, it helps you to understand how certain protocols work, and B, it saves you the time of having to search that documentation yourself. The feature, however, that I'm most excited about is the transact feature. Currently showing an example on screen where you use one of its features. You use it to bridge $1,000 in ETH from Optimism to Mode, but you can use that AI terminal to do way more things. Claiming rewards like the Optimism airdrop, do swaps, combine multiple actions into one single step. I think even check if ENS addresses are registered or not, and then register them if you want to claim a specific one. All you have to do is to enter the prompt in the chat. Super convenient for multi-step operations, or if you just can't be bothered to search for a specific bridge for your destination chain. The one thing to keep in mind is, yes, you have this explanation there on the screen that tells you what you're about to do. And you can also go on the detail button to see if everything is checking out just the way you intended it to do. But I heavily advise using a wallet like Rabby that has advanced transaction simulation, so you can actually see what the outcome of the transaction is that you are about to sign. Moving on to the third and last feature, that's the deploy feature, which you can use to deploy smart contracts like minting an NFT collection or creating your own meme coin. The example I have up on screen is to deploy an ERC20 named Mr. Mode with the token ticker MRM and an initial token supply of 10,000 tokens. Basically, you prompt the AI and it generates the code in Solidity for you. It's a no-code solution. All you have to do is click confirm and sign the transaction manually in your wallet again. Of course, you can also take the time to quickly check if the smart contract looks right to you. And what you also can do, which I think is pretty neat, is you can manage all smart contracts you have deployed via the AI terminal and interact with them on the settings page. So you don't need to actually understand what the code does, although that is pretty helpful to have an idea of that, but you can access all of its features via the setting page. So the final question is, how do you actually access the terminal? In order to access all of its features, you need to stake 400,000 mode tokens at current prices. That is around 4K in USD. Do keep in mind that if you're staking the tokens to access the terminal, there's also a 7-day cooldown if you want to unstake your tokens. We're looking forward to exploring all things AI on Mode over the next couple of months in our upcoming segments that we're going to do with them.
Like it. Thanks very much, Legendary. As you say, Mode making a really big push in AI, DeFi AI, and the AI agent sector in general. So excited to be covering some of those developments as we go. Let's get into it. Getting into the main headline and welcoming to the show. Bread Guy is with us after a little bit of a late introduction. How you doing, my man?
Hey, buddies. Yeah, it's we're burning the candle at both ends these days. I'll say that. You guys know the mint is going on right now for Mega ETH, so got to go to sleep a couple hours ago.
Legendary said, like, yeah, Bread was up like 2 hours ago.
So, yeah. So we had a startling wake up, but yeah, things are good. Hey, what's up, buddies? Yeah. All right. So
how much gas do I need to prepare for the mint that's opening up in a few hours? You got like 6 hours to go.
Yeah, it's supposed to open up at like it's 12 p.m. so noon Eastern.
I am ready, man. The page is open. I'm sitting on it from now.
Yeah, I literally don't have I'm still haven't checked up all my chats that are blowing up. So like I need to go and see the status of things. Modern market was the priority. I'll say that. I had to come up, had to let the people know what's going on.
What a chat.
Good stuff.
But all right, so the headline that we have today was for World Liberty Fi. They actually just recently announced we'll call it a strategic partnerships with traditional institutions. They actually structured this thing. It's kind of weird, frankly. I'm reading this thing, and I don't know if anyone else had this, but my my AI vibes shot off a little bit, just like the structure that I was seeing.
Oh,
and
really?
Like, I feel like I have that spidey sense these days because you see so much of it. Like
more and more is just AI generated, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like okay, I'm kind of feeling what's going on. But anyways, like they just came out. It's kind of vague with what they're thinking, vague in the actual deployment of capital, but it's basically just that, hey, we have a bunch of funds. We're going to diversify our funds throughout the ecosystem. Again, they broke this down into 3 parts. One was just the purpose. The purpose is saying that, it's a strategic token reserved, and they're just going to expand beyond their actual holdings into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies, which again is the vague thing. You've seen them recently purchasing things like Move and other things on the balance sheet, and other rumors have come with that. And what their goal is to have, one, to just like bolster their holdings across the ecosystem and develop partnerships. The other is strategic partnerships with traditional institutions. And for them, the main one there was basically just to enable visibility, public visibility, and familiarity with blockchain amongst the world. That being the strongest thing. And then it just ended with a call to community that's just like, hey, if you have ideas, if you've seen other tokens or projects that align with the vision that we have laid out, again, it's to enable visibility within the ecosystem. It's enabled to make this normal. It's to strengthen our holdings, right? It's the vague call to community to say, hey, join us on this journey. Let us do stuff. I think Diff had the amazing commentary. It was like, yeah, they're going to use our ETH to buy more ETH and other assets. But that's, yeah, it's kind of just a broad announcement that, hey, we're going to be spending this stuff, hopefully within the ecosystem. And it sounds like some outside of the ecosystem, if they're going to be partnering up with traditional institutions to familiarize the world with blockchain technology, which is what we all strive for.
Love it. Excellent summary as usual, Brad. The thing I wanted to tie this into is a couple of things. Remember last week, and I guess I don't know what the response was to this article. We reported on it, and we didn't say this is definitively true. Did they respond to it? I'm not entirely sure. They said last week, Blockworks reported in an exclusive piece that Trump-backed World Liberty Financial courts crypto teams for token swaps. So the position here, or the argument here, was that they were willing to buy at least $10 million for any team that was willing to buy $10 million worth of unlaunched World Liberty Fi tokens with a 10% fee. World Liberty Fi would then go and buy the same amount. So I don't know. This article is out there. I'm not entirely sure if that was responded to. I don't know if these buys that are taking place now are because of this type of deal. I'm just flagging that for the people to know that, okay, fine, they might be going around buying these bunch of things, but we might not know the terms of the deal, and they might be tied to some other thing. And then the thing I wanted to tie that into deeper, because I'm kind of noticing a trend here, are these series of tweets from Rishi, the founder of Movement Labs. Obviously, Move is one of the tokens that the Trump or LibertyFi team have been purchasing. And we are scheduled to have him on the show on Friday. So I'd be super excited about that interview, really interested to, dive into all of this stuff with him. He obviously mentioned just yesterday that the reserve is growing. This was in response to World LibertyFi adding more than $500,000 of Move. And then there's also a couple of tweets from Rishi, which I think got a bit of a pushback, to be honest, talking about the importance of politics. I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. He said, politics is the most important go-to-market play for crypto companies today. My sense is that the next 5 years will be a space race for crypto hegemony. The teams that can lock in the relationships with federal agencies, institutional capital, and world leaders are the ones that survive. And, he goes on to say some other things. On some level, I think some people applauded this and said, well, great, go and form the relationships, whoever, that's business, right? Having the best relationships, making the right relationships is part of business. But then there was also a bunch of pushback to the extent that it's like, look, that's not what crypto is supposed to be. Bitcoin doesn't have that spirit. It's supposed to be outside of the force of politics. And in response to that argument, he said, it seems like some misunderstood the politics tweet. Yes, crypto should always be open source, never controlled by centralized actors, and all the principles of Satoshi. Nobody is against that. But there are really big use cases for blockchains in enterprise and government, especially around transparency. For example, billions are being spent in various departments in the states, and using blockchain would give constituents visibility into government spending. He goes on to say some other things, but I'd be curious to go around here and get a sense of what we're thinking. Maybe coming to you first, Bread, then Dith, then Legendary.
Yeah, I think why this feels icky is because, like, if you go back to, I mean, horrible comparison as far as like catastrophe size, but that SBF, man, like that was his entire angle for a long time. SBF, for people who maybe didn't survive the last round of crashes, was the founder of FTX and Alameda Research. He was the person that was living in the Bahamas and funneling money out the back door of a centralized exchange. He was schmoozing with a bunch of politicians, trying to like get in good favor. Everyone thought he was a justice warrior for the industry, and his pitch was always per dollar spent, it is most effective in the political arena. It goes further. It can instill more change. Like, it's better for us. And then he fucked us. And every bridge that he had built was lit ablaze, and it retracted and maybe even reset a lot of the progress that was made by years. So like it feels of the vein, because like we've done this before. We've seen champions within the industry go do stuff. We also have good ones, right? Like Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, right? Like, he's within the industry, original Bitcoiner. He's been also on the regulatory front, like pushing for everyone. He's been a good actor. I think that's a universally felt thing. It's just that, like, yeah, it's the angle's been played, and like the ecosystem is probably still having some PTSD from that.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, right? That's like well articulated, that where the concern is coming from. But then Dith, like, you specialize in going to market. Like, is that where the opportunity is now, realistically? Like, on a realistic basis, where there is so much competition amongst all of these chains, and with a government that is now, more open, is that the play for these chains?
Yeah, I think trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, I think I know what he was kind of trying to say. Like, there is kind of a BD angle now, right? Like,
Sure.
Government's opening up. You have senators, like, honestly memeing, talking about coins, making introductions for teams, teeing up deals, and so on. So like, good sort of BD fundamentals apply. Like, if you have a real product and you are trying to get visibility of that, support for that, and so on. There is a line though, like as Brett says, and like the way his tweet was constructed was, you know, it was unclear which sort of side of the line he was talking about. His follow-up tweet kind of walked back and tried to reposition the whole thing, which is more like, no, I'm actually talking about like serving the government and like fulfilling that use case. It's like, okay, well, that's not actually what you meant with the original tweet. I think he was talking more about this sort of gray area BD where you win favor, and some of that is maybe legit and above board and on merit, and other is this sort of like, I don't know, is it some sort of like backdoor deal type level stuff? I think the fundamentals, like, you know, let's come back to the fundamentals, and that's what matters most. Build real products that have real use cases, and then you don't need to play these like weird, dirty side games. They kind of become like a nice to have, like, and they just become like a legit thing that you do on top of like good business practice and good business development. It doesn't have to be done in some sort of weird, shady way where you're trying to gain advantage through relationships alone, and like the product itself isn't good enough. So, you know, TLDR, I think if you're building something in crypto and it's real and the fundamentals are sound, then sure, like go and BD to your heart's content. Get support from everyone you can, whether it's chain partners, whether it's customers, whether it's people in government, like, but, you know, play a good, clean, long game, right? And if you take shortcuts, eventually that shit bites you in the ass.
Yeah, look, I think that's fair. I mean, if you think about it, as you said, good BD fundamentals apply. I think is one of the things you said. And it's like, you know, teams go out to attract business from, you know, they travel around to different countries, wanting to interact with different protocols. You know, the government's just basically become a client in some way. Like they're just a new client that was never on the market before, and now they're on the market. So like you'd be crazy not to try to be in the conversation, I think. So I think
that's the difference, right? If you were to talk to, I don't know, random senator today versus random senator 6 months ago about crypto, senator today they're going to be somewhat interested, right? All their peers are interested. President's interested. Stuff's happening. Where 6 months ago, like you probably wouldn't even try unless you had some very intricate long-term scheme with an embedded family and, you know, the kind of the SBF sort of scenario. But today, anyone can kind of have their shot, right? Like if I were in an elevator with a senator, would I talk to them about like what I'm building in crypto? Probably.
Yeah, why not? I mean, as you say, it's the hot topic, so it would almost be irresponsible not to on some level. Legendary, coming to you, wrap this topic up, although we're probably going to continue it because we're talking about meme coins later. We're talking about the head of policy of A16Z becoming the permanent chair of the CFTC as well. So like, where do you come out on these two sides of the debate?
Yeah, I very much agree with what both of you have been saying, Brett and Dis. I think there is a fine line that you have to walk. You obviously have to admit that the government per se is a very or has lots of use cases for blockchain. Although the part of saying that, example, billions are being spent in various departments in the States and using blockchain would give people visibility to government spending is probably not the most popular choice. Just if you look at DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and how much pushback that seems to receive from everyone who's involved in Elon's digging into that. But I do agree, there's real use cases, and we've seen that so many times. I think one of the examples that always comes to mind is the entertainment industry, the VR glasses, mixed reality glasses, all of that. That has a lot of military applications, and the glasses that have been used for military, mixed reality specifically, that have been used, or AR as well, for military applications. Before it was the case with Microsoft, where the US government was funding that for military research. And I remember that the dev team was pretty shocked to find it out. A couple of people quit their job. But at the end of the day, there is massive demand coming from that side. And that demand can then also be translated into some more consumer-friendly, retail-friendly things, like having your VR goggles at home and not necessarily for active soldiers in combat. So it's a very tricky, it's a very fine line to walk. It's definitely not something you can ignore. But other than that, I can't say anything on that matter without repeating what both Dis and Brett have been saying before.
Okay, I like it. Look, we're kind of staying on that political course in some way, Legendary. One of the other headlines is that A16Z head of policy setting to become the permanent chair of the CFTC. What's the quick download there before we get into the conversation around meme coins and the state of the trenches?
It's actually a super relevant piece of news, but maybe just for clarity, CFTC is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. It's a government agency and it is regulating derivative markets, futures, options, swaps. So all of those things are being regulated by the CFTC. And for that reason, it actually matters who is heading that and what their stance is on crypto. And there's been this article that I'm sharing on screen currently by the blog that Trump plans to nominate A16Z's Brian Quintenz to chair the CFTC. And that is a pretty interesting choice. Quintenz has served as commissioner of the CFTC from 2017 to 2021. Obviously, Dith has mentioned it before, A16Z, not only a top-tier venture fund, but also has been supportive of crypto and crypto applications for years and years, even throughout the bear market, where a lot of people have stopped believing into the potential longevity and success of crypto. And that is very significant because Brian specifically has a very, very crypto-friendly standpoint, which was also illustrated by this post or repost by D-Farmer, who has dug out this old post by Brian Quintenz saying that by approving ETH ETFs based on ETH commodity futures contracts, the SEC has officially provided clarity on ETH status as a non-security. With so much innovation being built on the Ethereum blockchain, this creates a clearer path for builders. It's ridiculous and insulting that it took so long to get there, but it's a big win for the crypto space and more importantly for the future of the internet. Again, this tweet or this post is dating back to October 2023. So quite a while ago, and historically, he's been very supportive and very vocal about being pro-crypto, which is a news that was very well received within our industry. Even this post, if you scroll through the comments, has resurfaced and has gotten comments over the last night from people being super happy to see that this has been a historically very positive stance towards crypto of Brian Quintenz.
Okay.
You know, I look at this and like just thinking like the power of like, you know, politics and alignment, whatever. Like, if I didn't want crypto to proliferate, if I hated crypto, I was that part of the anti-crypto army. How would I feel about this person being put in a position and like, because like I'm whatever, we're in the industry where obviously everything is good, but like how good is it? Like if I try to look at all of his comments and like his position, who he is, through the lens of someone who's like, fuck, I don't want crypto to, like, it's scam town, USA, right? I would not feel good seeing this guy who's like ex industry. He's already had comments about crypto coming forward, like even in like a Kool-Aid drinking lens that I would drink that through, or and then like the total opposite that someone who would not want it to proliferate would have. Like this guy seems like a pretty big like deal, like strategic piece, right? It's just someone that gets put into place, right? That can set the industry back if you were against it many years, because like, fuck, we were trying to build up a way to stop crypto from proliferating. It's a scam, whatever. But now this person is in a key strategic position and is clearly favorable to crypto. Like I would be upset if I wanted crypto to not do well, seeing someone like that be put in that position and knowing that the height at which he was put in, right? The chair.
Do you think, what do you think happens with that swathe of either the political population, the people who are in power, who would, had been against, or do you think this is just like, times are changing, they have moved forward now, there is no going back, or do you think they're just going to have to get on board, they're going to have to leave? What's your instinct?
I mean, I don't do politics very much, so like probably just have to deal with it, right? So like, I mean, you guys may be able to comment on it better than I do, but the general vibe is just like, we always talk about these positions, are these moments of transition of power, and like, I always hear from as an American, or feel as an American, like, oh, the president's just a puppet, right? They don't have any real power, like they're just doing stuff. But like, whenever you can actually strategically place people throughout an entire infrastructure that to do stuff like this could potentially be something that lasts beyond his reach. So like, I don't know. I guess it's mostly just eye-opening for me. Like as I reflect on this, of like not being particularly exposed to politics, of just like, yeah, like I know the president doesn't have that much power in isolation. Although, like I would say, Trump, with the way he talks, is a little more dramatic than most presidents, just because it can be bombastic. But then you see stuff like this that is impactful for maybe potentially beyond his term. Because it requires them being ripped back out, and like the opportunity may not present itself, right? Somebody like judges being put in on the Supreme Court. But generally, that's just the general commentary for me. It's
interesting. Look, I think that's fair. When you're talking about how effective this will be from a government perspective, and like how powerful they actually are in order to get the things done, I kind of want to merge the next two bits of news together. I guess one of there was the main headline is that Jason Calacanis, famous investor, All In podcast host, said to just ban these stupid meme coins yesterday. He says he wants them off his timeline, doesn't want to see them anymore. But I think the more interesting general trend, which I think people have noted already pre-election as well, is the kind of tech elite merging in with the Republican Party, and how they're kind of going into Doge specifically, and very, very interested in Doge and everything that Doge is doing. Legendary, I don't know if we can play the clip, but like we're talking about how much power they've kind of accrued, or like in order to try to execute on this vision of cost cutting even. This clip of Elon from yesterday, this is unheard of. Like I watched this and I thought, wow, like this is truly, truly unbelievable. Or it's so rare that this, and it must have sent shockwaves around the whole ecosystem. Ledge, can we play the audio here?
You should be able to play it. If I play it, I get this audio feedback. So if you have it ready, you could give it a try, and it should work.
Okay, you guys make me want to hear it. I didn't hear this. This is now I have a lot of anticipation.
Well, I mean, I've certainly set it up in that way, haven't I?
Yeah.
Let's see whether.
And this is my government. This is things that are impacting me.
Yeah, keep it going, Brad. Keep it going.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm excited as someone whose entire life is like my worldview is observed from the timeline. That's how I learned the Super Bowl was actually happening this weekend, was from my timeline, not from the millions of people around me enjoying the Super Bowl. So, I think it's fitting that I also get my political news from this show and from the timeline.
That sounds about right. Okay, let me see whether. Oh, can I see you? Can you see me? What can you see? You can see the video.
Yeah, we can see the clip.
Can you hear the audio?
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right?
etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But they seem to be mysteriously, they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where do they come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it.
It's pretty
shots at Nancy.
Yeah, like that's pretty crazy, right? Like I've just never seen or heard people ready to go after, or at least investigate. People have been saying this for ages. That look. How is it possible that on this particular salary,
making this much money, thing, right?
Oh,
it's
but
this thing, isn't it? It's completely.
This happens in third world countries all the time, right? Like is par for the course there. The difference here is just like Elon is turning the spotlight back on the U.S. government and saying you guys are no different.
Yeah, entirely. And I just think obviously lots of people let it pass before because they don't want the spotlight turned on them, because if someone else is doing it, then maybe the spotlight gets turned on you. And I just think if it's, you know, the fact that he's even saying that, you know, it's there's one thing going around like looking at some expenses and canceling some stupid DEI things that maybe you disagree with politically. That's like one thing. Now, like deciding to turn and go after the individuals specifically who just have accrued a lot of wealth when they have a low salary, that's like clearly a step change up, right? Of like the level at which they're really going to go after this stuff. And I don't know, just tying that all in with the general pro crypto, pro, you know, making stuff happen environment. I think maybe that's my takeaway from all of this stuff. Brett, I think you mentioned before, like, you know, usually this stuff might take a long time. This is like a make it happen environment right now where I think ordinarily this stuff would take weeks or months or whatever. And now it's happening right here, right now. But one piece of context before, maybe Dith, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think they actually got blocked the other day. The administration was told by some judges that they can't get access to some of the payment data that they wanted to, because they're, you know, it's like, there's a reasonable reason why, like, you want to keep the executive branch away from some of the other branches so that you don't have some kind of autocracy where people are going around doing those types of things as well. So it's just like this balance of power that is going to be interesting to observe over time. But Dith, did you want to come in here?
I mean, you know, sort of whether you love Elon or hate Elon, like this is kind of like what he does, right? This is the let that sink in like protocol, right? Like it's what he did when he acquired Twitter. There's so many stories like this about him at Tesla and SpaceX and Boring, and it was either him or Larry Ellison of Oracle, where there was like just a story where like, hey, there was like an office next door that didn't have internet in it or something, and he just literally took a hammer, smashed a hole in the wall, and drug an Ethernet cable through it, right? It's like, that's like, hey, we're not even going to delay this 5 minutes, like let's get it done now type vibe. And personally, as someone who's, you know, run teams, run companies, I love that shit. Like, why delay anything if it can get done right now? We love to find reasons to like put stuff into process and delay it and so on. So I quite like that he's just making shit happen. And the whole thing altogether feels somewhat like Rage Against the Machine, right? Like, it's time for crypto. And like you sleazy incumbent, you know, guys that have been doing backdoor shit, like, we're going to oust you, we're going to find you. And I don't know, man, it's cool. Like, let's see what happens. I'm here for it.
It's wild to get basically all those data points unraveled. As you said, no matter if you like Elon or don't like him, but just see some of those numbers. And I feel like the one that shocked me most was the Congress spending of $516 billion US in 2024 on programs with expired authorizations, some of them dating back over 40 years. So there's like a government program that has expired in the 80s.
But it was a line item still?
Yeah, but it's still getting signed off, and, you know, it's still getting paid for in 2024.
So where's that going, kind of thing? Interesting.
Yeah. So it's fascinating to see someone come in with this like basically entrepreneurial efficiency mindset and see, okay, where's the biggest like flow of money, and let's take a look at that and let's see if this looks legit or if it doesn't look legit.
It's so funny. Like, I know there's pendulums going to swing on some of this stuff, or like from us on the outside, like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Why? Like, it's a scam. Like, that's all going to someone's pocket. Like, I'm sure on some level for some of these things, there's a legitimate reason something's being paid out. Like, the paperwork just isn't clean or something, and like they're just making it look bombastic. But also in the same right, it's also like kind of what BJEC led in with, like, everyone's been aware of a lot of this stuff of like, and it's like, oh yeah, we're not taking crazy pills. Like, yeah, like someone said the words, and that's kind of validating to see that, like, okay, yeah, like there is some of that inside. Like, let's not act like it doesn't exist. We should act like it exists, and we should probably fix it. And then you fix the thing. Hopefully they don't overfix it, which I'm sure is also an outcome that we can have. But we'll see that as it comes.
Like Elon was saying in a Nowhere Overtime in another clip that he learned that basically they can't retire more than, I think it was like 10,000 people a month, and he was like curious to learn as to why that is the case, and was being told, well, it's a manual process, and at the end it lands on one guy's desk, and this is like the maximum he can sign off in a month. There's no way to do more than that, and then kind of explain where it all gets physically stored in some sort of like mine from the 50s, and it's just interesting to see like how some of these processes still work. But as you say, Brett, like there's a reason that some of them might work like that, and there's probably still a lot that can be improved very, very significantly.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I guess the one maybe conclusion that I'm taking away from this conversation as it relates to the market is I think we're in for a bumpy road. Like, I know that a lot of this stuff is very positive on some level, but like, I can't see there not being any fallout from taking basically, it's the equivalent Dith of that analogy you just said of him taking a sledgehammer and going through the wall to put an Ethernet cable through. That's what he's doing to the government.
Someone had to patch that wall.
Yeah. So like there's going to be some bumps because that's what he's doing to the government. So yes, long term, this is great for crypto positively. That's very positive, but like he's taking the sledgehammer and he's putting it through the wall. So someone's going to get upset about that. And I suspect someone's going to like push back at some point in time. At first, it might be the legal system. It might be some people with commercial interests. There'll be some pushback, I think. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Exciting stuff, guys. Exciting times. Grateful as always for joining us as we share what we think about those exciting things with you. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcast too. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, legendary Bread and Dith from Proof of Play. We will be back again with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.